and what we do in terms of our positive parenting. Next slide. The family is the cornerstone of society. If we think our families are the pillars of society, and the family, for any member of that family or the household, the family is the place where you go to. Is a place where you have, security. You feel safe in that warm family atmosphere. You feel you belong in that family. You feel that you are a positive member of that family, that you have something to give, something to contribute, but also you feel secure and you feel at ease to express your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings. We'll talk about those later on. And also you have positive role models in your family. You have people, your parents, who are a good example for you that you can look up to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about our best role model, is the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Indeed, in the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you have the best example. You have the best role model, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And we can see, inshallah, what did he say in the next slide? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, how he was with his family. So in our family setup and in our family environment, we should demonstrate the best of ourselves in our family environment. The benefits and the maximum benefits from ourselves should be first given to members of our family. Our families should feel how we truly are as human beings, how we are in terms of our practice as Muslims, in terms of how we behave and how we conduct ourselves, in terms of how we manage and regulate our emotions and feelings and our behavior. And subhanallah, when the Sahaba wanted to ask about the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about his akhlaq, about his manners and his conduct, they didn't go to the senior Sahaba radiallahu anhum, may Allah be pleased with them all, but they went to his wife, Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha, and they asked Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha about the manners and the akhlaq of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Sayyida Aisha said, "Kana khuluquhu al-Quran," and his manners and his conduct was the Quran. And you can see why, because the Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith to Aisha, and she reported in this hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you are the best for their families, and I am the best for my family. So we can see how the Prophet ﷺ in his household was so kind and compassionate. He was so helpful. He will help around the house. He will milk the goat. He will mend his sandals. He will sweep the house. He will show himself and make himself available to members of his family. He will talk to them. He will ask about their concerns. He will share time with them equally as he shares with other people outside the family. So what the Prophet ﷺ was inside his house, he was also the same outside of his house. So there was a level of authenticity. There was a level of truthfulness. There was a level of there was a high level of genuine practice of that level. That level was maintained, whether it was outside the house or inside the house. So when we look sometimes in our own families or the people we interact with, sometimes you might have someone who is practicing and being very nice and beautiful, when they go to the masjid or they're with their friends, but as soon as they go back to the house, they become someone completely different. That's not the way of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ was so genuine, authentic, and truthful, whether he with his family or he was outside with his companions. Whether he was talking to a world leader or he was talking to a child who was 2 or 3 years old, he will have the same truthfulness, the same genuineness, the same authenticity in his conduct and his manner, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who follow the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam in our actions, in our intentions, in our deeds, inshallah, so we can be with him on the day of judgment, inshallah, and we can drink from his hands, inshallah, from the hawd, from the fountain of the Kawthar, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that, inshallah, and make us from those who will be with the Prophet ﷺ on the day of judgment, and the Prophet ﷺ will intercede for them because we have followed his sunnah and his practice during our lifetime. Next slide. So before we kind of go to the session, one of the most important things is when we find that cause difficulties in families and in our relationships is managing expectations. Sometimes we have different expectations of ourselves. We have different expectations of those who live with us. We have different expectations in terms of between the spouse and between the spouses, the wife and the husband. And these kind of conflicts and the different expectations also can impact, because we see almost a conflict in how we believe about one another, but also we see conflict in practice, and that can cause huge kind of disagreement. So the most important thing is to be able to be realistic with our expectations and realign the expectations with our capacity as a family. So it's very important about managing expectations of our young people, understanding our young people, what they're going through, as well as what we expect from them, and trying to manage expectations in a healthy way. And that will kind of set us, inshallah, on a path that we develop understanding. We allow one another to be flexible from time to time. We develop adaptability and we become more adaptable. So we're not rigid in our thinking. We're not rigid in our expectations. We're not rigid in our approach, but we try and review our expectations according to the situation that we face and according to the time we live in. And especially now we live in this lockdown, it's important to understand and manage our expectations that there will be people in our household who might be experiencing stress, maybe experiencing anxiety, maybe experiencing difficulties in terms of changes they're going through. So it's managing expectations and realigning expectations with reality is really important. Next slide. So when we talk about golden rules for families, for happy families and for productive families and for families who function well, there are certain rules, definitely. They help us to develop structure. They help the flow of communication. They help the defining of roles in the family. So there are definitely rules that we should have and principles to help us manage. And I will try and go through 7 of them today. And these 7, just to make it easy for you, inshallah, they're using the acronym CREATOR. If you think about the word CREATOR, CREATOR, we'll go through them one by one. So remember that word, CREATOR model. So CREATOR. And this will help you, inshallah, to remember this acronym and also to remember the steps that we're going to be talking about later on, inshallah. So those are the 7 golden rules that we're going to mention, inshallah. So for the first letter of the acronym is the word communication. And communication is so vital for the flow of the family dialogue, for the flow of cohesive relationships, for the flow of developing understanding, for the flow for things to flow and to develop. So sometimes in our families we often assume that the other person should know, or we think that we have expressed ourselves in a way that the others should understand us. Without communicating effectively, the communication doesn't flow and it becomes a barrier. And if you look at most family problems, most difficulties, whether it's between husbands and wives and husbands, between parents and grandparents, between children and grandchildren, all those can stem from lack of communication. So this component is so vital because it allows our family to be healthy, to function well. And this is why it allows the flow of communication to develop. It allows it to become part of our competence, part of our interactions on a daily basis. So what does that mean in terms of communication? So it's being able to express our thoughts, our emotions, our needs amongst the family members. And there's no room for judgment. There's no room for, shutting people down. There's no room for secrecy or avoidance in the family because everything is transparent. We trust one another. We share with one another how we feel, what we think. And then that enables us to develop trust, enable us to almost see one another as extension of our friendships, as extension of companionship. So it allows us to, sometimes when we go through these kind of family difficulties, we experience difficulties in our emotions. We experience negative thoughts. And if we can't express them in our families, then who do we go to? We might go to other people outside the family who will take advantage and exploit the situation, or say the wrong thing even to young people. For example, if young people can't express themselves in the family setup, then they normally seek their friends or they seek people on the internet. And when we talk about security and safety, also it's really important to think about how we make our families secure. Especially during this lockdown, in terms of the internet, in terms of what information they're accessing. Are they okay to come and ask us questions if they read something? Are they okay to come and talk to us about something? And I will give you an example, and I might digress here, but I'll give you an example. If you imagine, if you read chapter Yusuf came to his dad, and he said, Ya abati inni ra'aytu ahada ashara kawkaban. Oh my dad, I have seen 11 almost, the Shams and the Qamar and the 11 part of the universe that they were making sujood to me. The 11 stars and the sun and the moon were making sujood to me. If any of our children come to us today and they said that they had this dream, they saw the 11 stars and they saw the moon and the sun making prostrating for them, how would we react? We will be shocked. And we will say, what are you talking about? We will say, are you sure you're okay? But imagine what Yusuf's dad did. He listened to him, subhanallah, and he validated him. He said, قال يا بني لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك. Oh my son, don't share your dream with your brothers, because the shaitan might come between you and your brothers, and the shaitan might start plotting between you and your brothers. And then he told him that this is, Allah will teach you how to interpret, speech and dreams, and Allah will make you, continue the legacy of your forefathers of Ibrahim and Ishaq. So Allah will accomplish His ni'mah upon you. So what Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam was doing there, he was validating his son. He was affirming his heritage. He was making him link with his family tree. He was giving him all this validation and all this positivity so he can feel good about himself. And if you think about Yusuf alayhi salam, he went through so many traumas in his life. Well, there were two things constant in his life. There was the relationship that he had with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through his parents and through the nurturing of his dad, and also the significant attachment that he had a very strong bond with his dad. So that kind of stabilized him, that sustained him when he was going through a difficult time and when he was going through trauma. So communication is so essential. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ar-Rahman, in Surah Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. علم القرآن خلق الإنسان. He taught the Quran. He created mankind. Then علمه البيان, taught him the ability to express himself or herself, to be able to share, to be able to express what we feel and how we feel, and our thoughts and our emotions in a safe space and in a safe environment. Next slide is, or the next point is respect. In any family, we have people in our family setup who have so many things to bring to the family. They bring different characteristics, different qualities, different things to the family. So in this setup, it is crucial that the family environment promotes healthy respect for one another. We value each person and what they bring to the family unit. And when we talk to them with respect. When we share things with them, we do it in a very respectful way. We don't put them down. We don't tell them that they don't bring anything to the family. We don't talk about them behind their back. We don't talk about them in a negative way. We validate them and we value them. Like we like them to respect us, we have to respect them too. So respect sometimes has to be earned. It's not something that is just given. If we want, for example, interacting with our colleagues at work, we have to respect our colleagues and share with them things in a respectful way. So in order for us to be respected by our colleagues, we have to show respect to them. Similarly, in our family setup, we have to show respect to one another. We have to value one another. We have to, and that's the way of the Prophet ﷺ. He would respect people regardless of their background, regardless of their issues. One time, the brother of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, he was a little boy, and his name was Umair, and his bird died. So the Prophet ﷺ went to visit, and the little boy was upset. And the Prophet ﷺ did not jump in there and say, "What's wrong with you, young boy or young man?" No, he asked his family, "How come Umair is upset?" They said, "Umair used to have a little bird, and the bird died, and he's upset about the bird." So the Prophet ﷺ went to him and said, "Ya Umair, ma fa'ala al-nuqayr?" "Oh Umair, what happened to the nuqayr? What happened to that little bird?" So imagine the Prophet ﷺ, who had the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's the messenger of Allah. He was the leader of the Muslims. He was the Imam sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and our Imam sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He had everything. He had to, he was the leader, but he took time to speak to that little boy and say, "What is concerning you? What happened to your little bird?" And he showed empathy to him. He showed respect to his feelings and to his emotions. That's our example. That's our Imam and our leader, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and our example. How he showed empathy to that little boy. Do we show empathy to our little children sometimes when they're upset? Do we go and pick them up and validate their feelings and speak to them in a kind and a compassionate way? And this week, in the month of Mental Health Awareness Week, and is a month of kindness, a week of kindness. So do we show kindness? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Irhamu man fil ard," show mercy to the people on the earth, so you will be shown mercy to the people. Allah will show you the mercy to you. So meaning that when you show mercy to people, and the people who are deserving of our mercy and compassion, our family, because they interact with us every day. They're the people who deserve our respect, deserve our mercy, deserve our compassion first, before we show it to people outside the family. Next slide. So E is about empowerment, meaning in order for our family members to thrive and to realize their potential and to be able to utilize their abilities, their skills, to realize that they have, a positive contribution to make to our family, we have to encourage them. We have to nurture them in the right way. We have to give them positive messages. Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the Prophet ﷺ was going through difficult times, Allah will reveal verses in the Quran, like Surah Al-Duha, for example, to validate the Prophet ﷺ, to give him positive messages, to make him feel connected, that Allah loves him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who protects him. Similarly with our families, when we give examples and we give messages to our families, do we affirm that these people in our family, that family members are worthwhile members of our family, they're worthy to be members of our family, they are, we love them, we appreciate them, we value them, we almost think of them, we think of them as part of our family, and anything that hurts them hurt us, and anything that makes them feel good also makes us feel good. Is about giving them the opportunity also to realize their goals, to realize their aspirations, to fulfill their potential, to make them realize that any barriers that are stopping them attaining or realizing their goals and their aspirations and their dreams can be removed by the family members around them and can be supported by their family members to achieve their goals. So it's about support, it's about facilitation, it's about facilitating for them to realize their goals and dreams and aspirations, inshallah. Next slide is about acceptance. And acceptance is about valuing people for who they are. They need to know they are valid members of this family unit. They need to know that we love them as they are, and we try and help them to become the best of themselves. And also in our family members as well, we realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created all of us. And there is difference amongst us. We don't always have to think on the same lines, or we don't always have to agree about everything. In families, there's always sometimes healthy discussion, or sometimes there's a room for maneuver, or there's a room for dialogue, and there's a room for allowing one another to be expressive in our family unit, to be accepted that their point of view is valid. Because what we sometimes have is one family member who will dominate the whole setup, or one family member will just say, what about it goes? And there's no room for maneuver. So when our children grow up, they don't have the ability to negotiate, or they don't have the ability to express themselves because they have not learnt that behavior, that positive behavior in their family setup. So it's very important to accept and not to be judgmental on our family members. Sometimes we judge. We either go from the standpoint that this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. But sometimes we don't give the flexibility to allow the dialogue to be established. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was most, he will talk to people, even, his enemies, even, the people of Quraysh. They will come and talk to him in one situation when Abu Walid was talking to the Prophet ﷺ. He didn't interrupt him. He waited for him until he finished. And Abu Walid was saying all sorts of outrageous things. But the Prophet ﷺ waited for him until he finished. And he said, have you finished now? And he said, yes. And then the Prophet ﷺ started talking. He gave him the time and the space. And this is very important. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Musa alayhi salam, when he went to Fir'aun, he said, say to him kind word. فَقُولَا لَهُ, you and your brother Harun, speak to him gently. Speak to him kindly, speak to him softly and leniently, so he might remember, or he might, something might trigger in him the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Fir'aun was a tyrant. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed Musa and Harun to speak to him gently. So do we speak to our family members gently? Do we validate them? Do we accept them? Next slide. T is about task allocation. What does that mean? Being part of a healthy family is very healthy because all of us have a sense of structure. We have a framework in our family. We have a structure when we go to sleep. We have a structure when we eat. We have structure when we sit down and talk to one another. We have a structure when we share things with one another. We have a structure when we go to work. We have a structure when we have time for play if we have young children. We have structure when we do fun things with the family. So everything has a purpose. And that, as Muslims, we do everything with a sense of purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Indeed, I have created mankind and jinn and mankind to worship. So anything that we do in our family setup can become a sense of worship, can become a sense of ibadah. Allah will reward us on that. Even the Prophet ﷺ said, when a person put, a piece of food in his wife's mouth, or the wife, give something to her husband, if the husband is working and he's trying to save his family from halal, to provide for them halal and to prevent them from haram sources, he will be rewarded. Similarly, if the wife is looking after the house and taking care of the children and in partnership with her husband, also she will be rewarded for her caring duties in the family setup. So it's all, we have roles in the family, but also we have task allocation. Each person knows their role. And this is very important for young people to realize. Sometimes when I see people coming to me for couple counseling, sometimes the wives will say, I'm really sorry to say, but my husband, he was never shown how to be a good husband because his mother did everything for him. So he didn't even know how to pick up his plate or do the washing or clean up after himself because his mom will do everything for him. He never learned to share with his wife or to be able to be productive and support his wife, when she was going through difficult times. So we're giving them these skills so they can be positive adults, inshallah, and they can be productive husbands and wives, inshallah, and this will give them a sense of accountability, a sense of productivity, a sense of responsibility, so they can accomplish any assigned task that is assigned to them, inshallah. Next slide. And also leading to this is a sense of organization. Any family that is successful will have a sense of organization. So we don't do anything just as, when we feel. There is a process for us to follow. There is a leadership in the family. Both parents are positive role models. I'm not saying here in terms of leadership it has to be a man. No, the husband and the wife are both leaders in their field and what they do. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullukum ra'in." All of you are shepherds, and every shepherd is responsible for his flock. The husband is responsible for his family. The wife is responsible for the household. The child is responsible toward his duties to his parents and fulfilling his duties, his educational duties. So each person has a responsibility and a duty. Next slide. The last of these kind of steps, inshallah, is about resiliency. And resiliency is very important. It's being able to have emotional resiliency, that we regulate our emotions. We develop coping strategies when you have crises in the family. We don't blame one another, because often when people experience difficulty, they start blaming one another. They don't share their concerns with one another in a healthy way. They start blaming and say, well, it's your fault, you did this. It was your fault, you started it. Healthy families don't blame one another, but they try and talk through things. And they communicate effectively. And they share with one another. They don't turn on one another and isolate one another, but they communicate effectively. They share, they develop coping strategies, and they say to themselves, we don't create a conspiracy of silence, but we create solutions to our difficulties. We create solutions to our problems by dialogue, by being patient with one another, by sharing with one another, by communicating effectively. And this enables, next slide. This will enable the family to emotionally regulate their emotions and their feelings. And as such, they will develop positive behavior, and they will develop ways of coping. So even when they are going through stress or difficulty, like now with lockdown, we sit down together and we share with one another. Instead of saying, well, you've done this, you're making me feel like this, we say, express ourselves in a healthy way, and we say, look, What about if you did this in a different way? Because this impacts on me negatively. I would really like you when you do something that helps me to navigate this difficulty. So it's about sharing, it's about using I statements that can help one another, and they can support us to develop solutions, to develop coping strategies, to develop a way out of any kind of difficulty or any situation. Next slide. A healthy family is a family that has a sense of purpose. A happy family is a family that works together. A happy family is a family that has a sense of collaboration, and they collaborate with one another. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran beautifully, He reminded us, said, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Support one another to do righteousness and to be conscious of Allah. And don't be allies to one another in terms of acting in an immoral or in an evil way. So it's almost we support one another to do the right thing. We support one another to be good, to be the best of ourselves. We support one another to do the best we can. We support one another when someone is falling down, we try and pick them up. When someone forgets, we try and remind them gently. When someone falls short, we try and help them and give them a helping hand. That's how beautiful families work. That's how functional families, how happy families work. That each person is concerned about the needs of others. Each person has empathy with the other person. Each person is supportive of the other person. So we develop this family unity and family cohesiveness, and the unit of the family become strong and become one body, rather than kind of being separate entities in one unit. We become one unit, inshallah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, indeed from His signs He has created for you, amongst you spouses, so you can live with one another in sakina, in tranquility, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make amongst you mawaddah, love and mercy and compassion, so you can be there as a sustaining and as a pillar for society, inshallah. In conclusion, by cultivating these steps, inshallah, we can develop them and we can live as families who have a sense of happiness, a sense of being healthy, a sense of being emotionally regulated, a sense of a family that is at ease with one another, a sense of family that is supportive of one another, but also enabling one another to achieve their goals and aspirations, to realize their potential, and to be a source of comfort for one another. As we mentioned in the verse that we recited at the start, رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. Oh Allah, grant us from our spouses and our offspring the comfort and the cooling of our eyes, and make us good example, good role models for the rest of the believers, and make us from those who are conscious. Inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our families righteous families, and to grant us the goodness of our families, and to make us good to our families, inshallah, and to make us the best of, the best of us, contribute towards our families, inshallah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us barakah, inshallah, in our families, and make us from those families, inshallah, who will become on the day of judgment with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they have followed the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Jazakumullah khair. If anything I said was good, is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if anything I said it wasn't good or is wrong, is from myself and from the shaitan, and I make istighfar, ask Allah to forgive me, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who listen and understand. And inshallah we'll have time for questions if you inshallah have any questions.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Indeed, inshallah, if you're okay, we may stay a little bit extra time because still people are only joining us now, would you believe?
Jazakallah, no problem, inshallah, no problem.
And may have missed some of your wonderful talk. Jazakallah khairan, that was absolutely wonderful, mashallah. What a lovely acronym. I don't know how long it took you to develop that acronym, but I thought it's wonderful, mashallah. Creator, what best acronym we can have to remember all these positive tools, all these 7 aspects that we should be learning and including in our lives, mashallah. Jazakallah khairan for that.
Jazakallah khair. I can't take the credit for it. I researched it, but alhamdulillah, I tried to bring it to an Islamic framework, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, excellent. It was really that. Before we go into some of the questions that came up on our parents lockdown group, I didn't get to mention about the importance of having the first part of people's postcode when you're logged in. We don't need your whole postcode, but we just want to have the first part of your postcode, whether you're from Birmingham, B12, B8, or from another city. Indeed, we're trying to monitor how many people come on these workshops, these webinars. We primarily are trying to include as many Birmingham people as possible, and we hope the word is spreading there across to all the Birmingham mums and dads, indeed, that it's primarily for you, because BEP, which is Birmingham Educational Partnership, have funded this to ensure that we're trying to reach their parents. But we know we're reaching a lot of other parents as well from all over the UK, and even some people from outside have tried contacting us previously. So we know this message is getting across to people. So if we just have the first part, oh, thank you. I see a lot of people already putting that in, the first part of their postcodes. That would be great, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Brother Saeed, we've had some questions that came in. I haven't seen a question now coming in over this talk, but we have some questions previously that came in.
Okay.
And over when we start telling people what we were going to talk about, and one of them was managing teenagers' freedom. They were saying that teenagers exploit their freedom during this lockdown. So do you have any tips, before I go to the other questions, around that one first, around managing their freedom? How can you prepare to it? Thank you.
I think the most important thing, or the first thing I would say is very important to understand teenagers, because teenagers are very they're between adulthood and childhood. And often we see them because they, mashallah, they grow very quickly. They're taller than us or bigger than us, and we expect them to behave like adults. But often they behave like children because they're still teenagers. And also there's a lot of research to say their brain is still developing, and they're not using the full capacity of their brain. And sometimes what they do, they're more emotional than logical. So I would suggest that in this kind of situation is to develop a sense of negotiation. So it's about development, as we said earlier, it's about communicating with them, sitting down and make them realize of the impact of their behavior, and also having a dialogue to see where they're coming from. So sometimes when we sit down with people, we want people to understand us. But sometimes it's also important for us to understand people in our family. So seek to understand before you're understood, and seek to understand where the behavior that they're exploiting their freedom is not the cause of the problem. This is just the symptoms of the problem. So there's underlying issues that the teenager might have. And it's about talking to them and looking at, who their friends are, for example. Do we have a good relationship with them? Do we have dialogue with them? Do we communicate effectively with them? Do we sit down together as a family and we share? Do we have things that we do as a family, we do together? Do we have, rules in the family? Is it like is everything regulated in the house? Or is it like, people have TVs in their rooms, computers, laptops? So we regulate the time. So we set time for study, time for using, your digital devices, a time when you sit with the family, as a family members, you sit together. So all those things, we have to be aware that teenagers sometimes, because they can be quite isolated, because often we focus on the little children. If the mother is at home or the dad is doing a lot of things with the young children, but then they ignore the older ones. And then the older ones go and find their own stuff. And they're finding their own friends, and they're developing their own relationships. And often the parents is not aware of these things until the horse has bolted. And then they come and say, well, my son is doing this and this, or he started to use this and that. But I always say, have a dialogue with the child before. Have a flow of communication. and don't be, try and balance it. So don't be too rigid in your rules, and also don't be flexible, to the extremes. Some people can be very, very flexible, they have no boundaries. And some people can be very extreme and rigid, that everything is about rules and boundaries. So it's about balance. The Prophet ﷺ always used to take the middle ground. So it's about realizing what is right, what is wrong, for our family, and developing a sense of resolving the issues, talking about the issues with their teenager, boy or girl, son or daughter, and developing a dialogue. So make sure that you don't break that dialogue. You always have a continuous dialogue with them, inshallah.
Inshallah, that's so important, isn't it? Which probably brings me on to the next question that's come in live now. And it is from a mom, obviously, because she's saying, how can moms get dads more involved with their children?
Yeah, it is really important. I think parents or children need both parents. And it's, as much as it the duty, and mashallah, our sisters, as mothers, they do a fantastic job. And often they're left at home with the responsibility. And obviously the dad maybe is working, or he's doing his, he's working hard to protect the family, to provide for them. But also it's about the wife and the husband having a dialogue and saying what is important for our family, as well as providing for them, the clothes and the food and the house and the shelter. It's also important to provide for them the emotional stability, the emotional support. And sometimes, if one parent is absent, then the other parents kind of takes all the pressure, and they feel frustrated, or they feel under pressure all the time. So it's about talking and sharing and say, how can we create time for the family, for the dad to be involved? Because also he's responsible as well as the mother. Both are responsible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they made the role of the parents so significant in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it after the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Allah said, worship Allah alone and do not associate with anyone with Allah. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ, and be good to your parents. The reason is because there's so much responsibility on the parents to do the right thing for their children, whether it's from providing, for them, as well as nurturing them emotionally, as well as being a guide for them, being a good example, as well as being a positive role model. Most of the people, they said, the Arabs used to say, they have a poem, it says, وَيَنْشَأْ نَاشِئُ الْفِتْيَانِ مِنَّا عَلَى مَا كَانَ عَوَدْهُ أَبُوهُ. Our young man will grow up on the principles that his father has nurtured him with, or his mother. So the parents have so much. So I would really tell the sister, inshallah, have healthy dialogue with your husband. Talk to him, inshallah, in a very positive way. Communicate with him effectively without blame. Because as soon as we say, well, you don't spend time with your children, the father becomes very defensive. And he'll say, well, what do you expect? I'm working all hours that I have. Well, maybe just say, look, I would really love, the children love spending time with you. The children value your contribution to our family. The children want you to be an active partner with me in their upbringing. So it's about having that dialogue in a healthy way, rather than kind of establishing a blaming game, or the blame game where we just blame one another. Because that is not going to help the children. It's not going to help the marital relationship.
Thank you, Jazakallah Khair. We have a couple of more questions that are coming in all over now, indeed, from Facebook and from Zoom.
Okay, mashallah.
Mashallah. So there's another question here. At what age should a teenager have a mobile phone, which would also include internet? How can we monitor what they get up to on the internet without breaking their trust or having disputes?
Yeah, I think it's important to establish trust first. You know your children better than me. So it's really difficult for me to give you a general answer, because I don't know. Some people, teenagers, for example, they grow differently in terms of their intellectual capacity, in terms of their sense of responsibility. So you might have someone who's 15-year-old who's very responsible and who have very strong boundaries. And you might have someone who's 18 or 17 who doesn't have any, or she doesn't have any boundaries, or they're not very streetwise about, what is harmful to them. So I would suggest that you sit down with your son or daughter and you establish dialogue, and then you establish trust, because you know how much you can trust them, because you were the one who brought them up. You know how much you invested in their trust. And if they trust you as well, the other thing, I would ask a question. Would they find it easy to come and talk to you if they had a problem? Or would they go to their friends? Where do they get their information from? Do they come to the parent, or do they go to the internet with their friends? So that's also a very important part to realize. And it's about dialogue. I mean, I would really urge the parents to sit down together and talk about what is good, what is healthy, what is not healthy in terms of accessing information, in terms of accessing the internet. And the internet can be a source of goodness for people. Also, it can be a source of harm. How many children, we see sometimes they get, there's grooming on the internet. There's all sorts of things that are horrible and can harm children.
Martin, doing that parenting group. Yeah, it's really good. It's brother, my friend. It's a lot of my Prophet Muhammad and this post. Yeah, everyone on mute.
That's coming in. Can we remind people to turn off their microphones, please? Thank you, Jazakallah khairan, so that we can hear effectively. Thank you so much. As a response there was actually somebody made a comment when you were talking on the group, and they were saying that they are mature but not responsible.
Well, that's the situation. I would say to them that you test the water first. And sometimes, obviously, you need to trust them, because you don't want to be watching what they're doing all the time. You say to them, I'll trust you. And you test the water and you see how far they go. But obviously, you don't want them, you also need to educate them about the boundaries and about what is harmful, what is acceptable, what is not. Because each family will have their family values. What is acceptable to them and what isn't. And I would really sit down with that young person, whether they're a boy or a girl, and have a dialogue with them and treat them with respect. And say to them, I know you're my son or you're my daughter, and I really value you and respect you, but also I worry for you, because obviously you're my responsibility. And if I was to give you a mobile phone, what are you going to be using the mobile phone? How are you going to use it productively? Give them the option. How are you going to make sure you are protected? How are you going to make sure that you don't go to things that might, be harmful to you? And develop a sense of responsibility with them as well. So start testing them at home. Do you give them duties to do at home? So how they're going to learn to be responsible if we don't give them a sense of responsibility in the first place? So we need to give them duties and tasks in the home. If they are responsible, like looking after their young brothers and sisters, or giving them money and see how they spend their money, for example.
So Jazakallah khairan for that. We have another question that's coming in, brother. It says, Salam, brother, I feel I've lost all the aspects of our family. Our family has become quite lost in the middle of everything. Where could we be the best place to start healing our family? I'm a mum of 3 tweens, teenagers, and I'm not too sure if this is single mum or not. So maybe if you can include in response an answer to a single mum.
Yeah. First of all, sister, may Allah make it easy for you, inshallah. And I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring you as a family close together, inshallah. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to heal the rift that you find in your family. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make your family as one unit, inshallah, and to guide you all, inshallah, to do the best for yourself in this dunya and the hereafter. So that's the first thing, is that, I think the most important is that Jazakallah khair for reaching out and being part of this group too. So you're on the first steps of the ladder, inshallah, by gaining information, by gaining knowledge, by being here today. So may Allah reward you for your efforts and for your proactive approach, inshallah. Secondly, I would really seek help and maybe contact an approachable parenting. And then we can see, inshallah, if there's ways we can signpost you either to family therapy or to maybe, kind of without knowing all the issues. And if the father's there, maybe including the father too. So if you're a single mom, it's important that you bring yourself close with the children and you develop that dialogue and maybe sitting down together and having healthy communication. Secondly, if your husband is around, also including him in this and part of the solution, and maybe using mediation or counseling or family therapy that can help, and there's no shame in asking for help. The shame is that we just do nothing and we allow ourselves to suffer in silence. So Jazakallah khair for being here today, and also for asking the question and seek help. You know, you can't, sometimes there are things we can't do alone. We need to get the help of the professionals, because sometimes when we, you know, have families, nobody gives you a manual and said this is how you do it. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way, but sometimes also you can't cope alone. So as Muslims, we always been asked to support one another, to develop resolutions, to develop solutions. And to this chapter Al-Asr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you know, human beings are at a loss except those who utilize their time. They believe in Allah and they could do good deeds, and they counsel one another. They advise one another with righteousness and with patience. So seek help as much as you can and reach out, inshallah, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open doors for you and to alleviate any difficulty that you have in the family.
Inshallah, Ameen, indeed, inshallah. There is also another question here, brother, about a preteen 11-year-old girl who's beginning high school in September, inshallah, and we'd like her to begin to wearing hijab. However, she's expressed that she doesn't want to. So what's the best way around this to encourage her to embrace it without forcing it upon her?
Yeah. So we start with the first principle in our deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said there's no compulsion in the religion. So we can't force people to do things. Even though she's a child and you think I know the best for her, but the only way to get her is work with her heart and try and get her to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to love you as parents, to connect with you. So I think it's about a connection first. Establish a good connection with her. You know, it's about developing a sense of warmth in the family. It's about developing a sense of trust. And also talking to her, you know, why Allah made the hijab an obligation for women. You know, sometimes we just say, well, you just wear it. But sometimes children need that explanation. They need the logical reason. So sit down with her and explain to her the importance of hijab, the importance of modesty, the importance of her as a person, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves her, and He did, you know, made the hijab obligatory for her because it's bad, but because Allah loves her and Allah wants to do the best for her. Allah wants her to be the best that she can for herself and to do the best for herself in this dunya and the hereafter. So it's about a connection, it's about a relationship that you have with her, but also her relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also it's about love. It's about making her feel that she wants to do it from her heart, rather than us just telling her you have to do it and you must do it. It's about her loving the way she looks with the hijab, rather than kind of, you know, and also as a family, you know, do we show her images of people who look differently, or do we glorify certain things in the family, you know, that are not healthy? So we need to be mindful of that as well, with the exposure that the children have, you know, to all these images, and they start having kind of negativity about their bodies and how they look. So it's about validating her as well, and appreciating her and valuing her as a person, and then having a dialogue.
Excellent, mashallah. And it leads me on to the dialogue, because there's a couple of questions around communication and dialogue indeed. So I'm bringing two in together, but if I just read this one, which probably is more explicit, it's how can you as a parent enforce rules and also become a parent who is approachable, somebody that the kids can come and talk to?
Yeah. I think the best way, I'm always worried about when people start saying enforcing rules, because then it's almost that giving me the image of someone being like a sergeant major, you know, going around with their notebook, you know, who's done what or whatever. But families should not be working like that, because we're not in the army. Family should be, I would really talk about the rules. I will have some family meetings, and then we devise our family rules. So each person has got an input into the family rules, and each person is accountable, and each person is contributing to our family rules. So, you know, we sit down together and we say, okay, the bedrooms don't get tidied up. So how can we make sure that everyone tidies up their room? So we set up that rule and we say, okay, what can I do to help you? So someone said, well, I'm really good at putting things together, but I'm not really good with one part of this process. So we can say, okay, who can support this person to make sure they complete their duty. So we complement one another, and we complete one another rather than competing. And we make sure that we negotiate. So it's about negotiation. It's about everyone feeling part of, we said earlier about belonging in the family, about communication. It's about sitting down together, writing the rules with everyone having their voice heard. Not just the father or the mother say, well, these are my rules, you're under my roof, you can if you like it, or you know what you can do. That doesn't work. It's about saying, as family, in order for us to function well, we have to have some rules. So let's sit down together, let's have family time. And maybe the mother or the dad will go and buy a nice cake or something. So we can say, okay, when we finish the meeting, we'll have something nice to eat, or we can share with one another after Ramadan. And then we can do our rules, and then we make sure that each person monitors the rule. One day will be the youngest son, next day will be the youngest daughter. So each person every day is that, each one that can have input into the rules, rather than just someone being the enforcer and nobody having a say in what is being done in the family.
You're making me hungry talking about cake now. We have still another few hours to go before we break our fast.
Inshallah, we'll have some after Ramadan, inshallah.
Inshallah, we will indeed. And we'll talk a little bit about Eid before we end, but there's another few questions here coming in. So a mum is asking about talking to her son about growing up and developmental issues and issues that he will be facing and that they will be facing when dad works away from home a lot. She says that she usually is very open with her children and speak about everything. So what advice would you give her about that? I'm sure she's talking about developmental issues to her son.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair, sister, for being open with your children and for being transparent and have that level of communication. May Allah reward you for your efforts. I think sometimes with boys especially, it's a bit difficult sometimes. You're talking to them about developmental issues because they feel embarrassed, especially when the mother approaches these things. So Jazakallah khair for being obviously transparent and open. But I will also encourage the father to talk to his son about these things as well. So it's not just one-sided, it's not just from your perspective, but also from their father's perspective. And also is to give them information, healthy information, Islamic information that is based on the Quran and the Sunnah, rather than kind of just learning about things from the playground or learning about things from the internet or from their friends. So I'm really glad that your son and your children talk to you openly. That's really positive. But I would really also encourage your husband, even though he works away, he must spend time at home with the family. So when he's at home, that he takes his children, that he take care to give them information, to have dialogue with them, to share, especially around developmental issues. Really important that we give our children and young people the right information and the right tools so they can help themselves and also they can develop in a healthy way, inshallah.
Great, mashallah. There's another question here about children again and raising them up and so much to hijab, which is a little different. So this question is in statement versus that in your family you have Muslim and non-Muslim friends, Christians and Muslims, and one of the parents is a convert. One of their children prefers to have non-Muslim friends now and is reverting away from wearing hijab and Islamic clothes, and it's not easy for her with her friends. Her friends are interested in fashion and they influence her quite a lot. So what advice could you give around this to this parent? She's only 10 years old.
Sister Kathleen, Jazakallah khair. I missed some of the question, but if I missed anything, you can remind me, inshallah. So I heard the last part. So I think it's really important when you think about children. Firstly, she's 10 years old. So I would ask, what is the relationship that you have with her? How do you nurture her as a child in terms of what is the bond that you have with your daughter? Because at the end of the day, we can't put our children in a glass cage because they're part of this society. They go to school, they mix with other people. So it's about what we give, is about the values and the principles that we put in them. It's about the healthy behavior that we teach them. It's about the knowledge. So when we think about, I would really urge you, inshallah, when Sister Kathleen does the next parenting course, that you come on that course, inshallah, the approachable parenting for young people between the age of 4 and 11. And that would be really helpful, because we teach on that course, we give parents tools, we teach them about the principles of parenting. And those are very important. It's about, giving them knowledge, it's about giving them, connection to the deen, is about giving them all sorts of things that can help them. Obviously, we haven't got time now to go to these principles, but just to urge us that when we think about the children, they're the most precious thing we have. And we need to invest in our children. So when we talk about investment, it's not about investment in terms of money. It's about investment in terms of time. It's about investment in terms of having positive attachment, in terms of having nurturing skills that can help us to manage our children and also to nurture them in the right way. So it's about developing their sense of what is right and what is wrong, without kind of saying to them, well, you can't see your friends. No, because they're going to go out to the world and they're going to be influenced by other people. But the biggest influence should be the parents, and should be the values that the parents instill in the children.
And may the parents always continue to influence children, inshallah. And as we know in our faith, it's not just influence them, but guide them, help them, support them. Even when they grow up older and in there to have successful marriages, etc.
And it's about role models as well. It's about being positive role models. It's about example.
Yeah.
Now, I give you a quick example. One day, Al-Hasan al-Hussein, they saw a man who wasn't doing his wudu correctly. So they said to him, oh, uncle, me and my brother, we're having a dispute about who's doing the best wudu. So can you judge who's the best amongst us? So they showed him, and he said, young children, you are the best. You're doing the wudu, mashallah, fantastically well. It's me who's not doing it correctly. So you see, they didn't say to him, oh, old man, you look at the white hair in your head, you're not doing the wudu correctly. No, they showed him by a beautiful example. So you can see the Hassan al-Hussein, they were the grandchildren of the Prophet ﷺ. So you can see how the values of the Prophet ﷺ were instilled in his grandchildren. And also how Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha and Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anha, how they instilled those values in their children. So it's about developing values, it's about instilling values, it's about demonstrating values in our behavior and our actions. So if the mother is saying to her child, I don't want you to wear this fashionable dress, but then the mother, she's always like looking in catalogs and on the internet, for the next wedding, when we're going to have the next wedding or the next gathering, she's looking for like dresses that are not appropriate or not modest. Then obviously the mother is saying something to her daughter, but is doing completely something different. Similarly with the dad, if the dad said to his son who's 17, 18, don't smoke, but then the father is smoking 20 a day or 30 a day, then what kind of example the father is providing for the child if he's saying something and doing something completely different? So it's watching what we say, but also more importantly is watching our behavior.
Jazakallah khairan, which leading us on and watching ourselves. We have a question here about older children. So this person has said she needs some advice. I've got children in their 20s. One daughter is 11 and I'm a single mom. How can you advise me on this?
May Allah make it easy for you, sister, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for your efforts, inshallah. And I would say that, establish the bond even with the older one. Always make dua for them, that Allah brings them close to you and close to Him. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he said, Rabbi ja'alni muqim as-salah. Oh Allah, make me establish prayer. And from my offspring, oh Allah, accept my dua. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Kahf, when Khadr and Musa alayhi salam, they went on their journey. And when Khadr came to a wall and he built the wall, and Musa said, you should charge them rent on this wall. And then obviously they separated. And the reason the Khadr said he built the wall, because there was a treasure underneath the wall. And the reason was because he wanted the children to find it when they got older. And the reason was, he said, وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا. Their father was a righteous person. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, He said, وَلْيَخْشَى الَّذِينَ لَوْ تَرَكُوا مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةً ضِعَافًا. Those who worry about leaving behind weak offspring, they worry about them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلْيَتَّقُوا اللَّهِ, let them be conscious of Allah. Meaning the parents, let them be close to Allah. So by making dua for your children, by being close to Allah yourself, inshallah, also having that continuous dialogue. One of the Sahaba used to say, when he was a leader of a place, that if there was a hair between me and the people I lead, he said that hair will not be cut. He said, if they release it, I will pull towards me. And if they pull toward them, I will let go a bit. So it's about developing a sense of flexibility, a sense of being adaptable, but also talking to them as adults rather than because sometimes we make the mistake that our children, they are young babies, even if they are 20 or 30. Sometimes you see in our cultures, people will talk to older adults like they're talking to children because they say, well, that's my child. Well, he's an adult or she's an adult. Talk to them in an adult way. Communicate with them. You know, the way you communicate with a 3-year-old is not the same way we communicate with a 20-year-old or 30-year-old. So it's about knowing their style of communication, knowing what make them tick, knowing what are the things that they appreciate and value, and then we go from that perspective, inshallah.
SubhanAllah, yes, there's a lot to know, isn't there? A lot to understand, and to think that they are adults, mashallah, and they have feelings, thoughts, their own perceptions of things. Yeah, mashallah, their own characters. We have another question. I think this is the last question now before we close. How to deal with children in performing wudu? This is a sister, I think, has 2 children aged 11 and 13, and they rush in wudu in their prayers. So you want some advice on that? Yeah.
Make it joyful, you know, make the wudu joyful. So for example, you say to them, like with children sometimes, if you say to them, go and brush your teeth, when they're young, they might not do it. Or if you say to them, why don't we have a competition and run to the bathroom and see who's going to have the best teeth or the shiniest teeth. We're going to look in the mirror and see who's got the shiny teeth, you know, after you brush our teeth. The young children will follow their dads or mother. They will have a competition. Make it joyful. Say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who do the best they can. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who, you know, imagine that when you tell your son or daughter that when you do your wudu correctly, everything you do, subhanAllah, everything will be washed away, you know, all the bad things, or if you said something wrong to your mom or dad, or you said something wrong, that, you know, everything will be washed away with your wudu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who do wudu, and on the day of judgment you will come and you will have light in your hands, light around your face, light around your ankles as a result of your wudu. Imagine the people will be, you know, there will be no light except the light of Allah. For those who have who done the wudu, they will have lights, and the signs of the people of the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, they will have marks, you know, the light around their elbows and their faces from the wudu on the day of judgment. So make it nice and joyful. Also, you know, show them how to do it. And maybe there's if you look on the internet and look for authentic sources on YouTube, for example, if you look at the wudu of the Prophet ﷺ, and also there's a video called the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ. Maybe we can look at this and maybe post it on the WhatsApp group, inshallah, for all of you, like the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ. We can look for that, and maybe the wudu, how to make wudu correctly, and we can maybe put it on as a link for you so you can watch that with the children, inshallah. And make it healthy, and make it that Allah loves those who do good wudu. Allah loves those who do good in their life, inshallah.
Inshallah, Jazakallah khairan. I know there's been a lot, we've got really ran over here with all those questions. Jazakallah khairan, brother. There's been a lot of thank yous and people praising you, mashallah. Also for all your answers, mashallah. If we forgot or didn't overlook a question, please forgive me. That was my fault, trying to go through the questions and gather them all. If there's something that we haven't answered and you want more details on, sisters and brothers, please do contact us. Our website is www.approachableparenting.org.uk. You can email us on info@approachableparenting.org.uk. Give us 24 hours in this situation, maybe a little bit more over the weekend, and especially over Eid, a little bit longer to get back to you. We also have a phone number, 0121 773 8643. If you leave a message, again, we will pick up those messages and get back to you, inshallah, because some sisters and brothers here may not have had their answer in what they wanted specifically for their question, and we may need to have conversations with you to actually answer you fully. So please do contact us, inshallah, or else you can join the lockdown group. So there is a post, we can post it again on Zoom or on Facebook, and you can join the parents lockdown group, where we have already 170 parents on that group, and we can answer your questions there, or you can contact us on a one-to-one basis, inshallah.
And we also have the panels, inshallah, after Eid, inshallah. And after Eid.
Thank you for reminding me. After Eid, we're going to, and we'll have more time indeed for these questions that will come in then. So that's a really exciting time, mashallah, with Brother Saeed, Sister Maria, and Sister Abida back in front of you in your screens, and you're going to be able to ask them questions directly, inshallah, and talk about parenting and parenting issues. So we're quite looking forward to that, Brother Saeed, mashallah. I'm really looking forward to it. And inshallah, people will let us know what day and time we will contact you works best. I need to ask,
Sister Kathleen.
well, I need to ask you before you go, indeed, how are you going to celebrate Eid? What have you got planned for Eid to make it exciting? We're talking about making things exciting for our children, and this is the first Eid in lockdown. How are you going to make it exciting?
Inshallah, well, the idea is, inshallah, we'll celebrate at home, inshallah. So we'll pray Eid at home, inshallah. And we have our masjid is doing like a Eid reminder that we can do on Zoom, inshallah. So we'll pray Eid first, and then we'll have the Zoom reminder, inshallah, from our Imam, inshallah, on the Eid day. And then we'll sit down with the family, inshallah, with the children, my wife, inshallah. So it's really important that we sit down as a family, we enjoy the Eid, because the Eid is sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and sunnah of our deen. And we make it joyful, inshallah. We do things that make us, inshallah, the Prophet ﷺ said, the believer has two moments when he is or she is really happy. First, when you break your fast, and then on the day of judgment, when Allah rewards us, inshallah, for the fast. So make the Eid joyful, inshallah. It's a time of joy, time of happiness. And at the same time, inshallah, reach out to your extended family through the phone, telephoning them, or through Zoom or FaceTime. And inshallah, so I will be doing that really, and also reaching out to my extended family in different parts of the world, using Zoom, inshallah, and FaceTime, and the telephone, and phoning my parents, inshallah. So make the Eid joyful. Make the Eid a time for connection, a time for the family, even if we can't see one another face to face. And because of the lockdown, and because it's important that we maintain our distance to protect our health. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, want us to look after our well-being, look after our health. And at the same time, we can reach out to one another through so much. We're so blessed, Sister Kathleen, with technology. We can talk to people all over the world, without even having to leave our home. This is a fantastic blessing, inshallah. And also, inshallah, the weather will be good as well. So maybe families can sit in the garden and have a, beautiful Eid, or have a barbecue or something they can do, and have fun as a family, inshallah.
Inshallah, this is what I am hoping families will do with this lovely weather. Maybe have a brunch as a picnic outside, do some treasure hunts or some fun games, quizzes with their younger children, and maybe their older children. Hopefully, if they have some time now to talk to their older children, to get them to plan something themselves, so to surprise parents. So the parents don't know what's going on, what's happening, so that they're taking control of some of the day as well, and planning in some activities that we can have some fun.
Absolutely, and it's important that the parents wake up early on the day of the Eid, and they make the house really nice and clean, and they're beautifully smelling the house, the house smelling beautifully, and they kind of wear their good clothes as well, and they appreciate, so the children can feel the joy of the Eid, and the children can feel the warmth of the Eid. And the children can feel that, subhanAllah, and also giving them, if there's any tradition in your family that you give them gifts, or, you give them like, Eid money or something, do it, make it joyful. So, the Eid is Eid. It doesn't matter where we celebrate the Eid. The Eid is meant to be a time of joy, time of happiness, a time of pleasure, a time where the family come together. And as you said, Sister Kathleen, that the parents make their children, feel the joy by being part of that family, by making doing things that make them laugh, things that make them joyful, things that make them happy. So it's about making each other happy, inshallah.
inshallah. And with that happy note, talking about happy families, inshallah, we're going to have to come to an end this evening. Parents, if you haven't sent your postcode, please do send in your postcode to us. Please do also post any comments of how you found this session. A little bit more than just Jazakallah khair and that was beneficial, but what was beneficial, we'd really appreciate this. We have to collate all of this information and bring it back to Beth, indeed. We wish you all, inshallah, and Brother Saeed, all our parents, all our staff, all our team, all our volunteers, a happy Eid, inshallah. May Allah make it a blessed occasion for us all. Ameen. May Allah accept all our efforts in Ramadan, inshallah. Ameen. And I hope we will see you all again after Eid. As I said, our panel are going to be in front of us, and we're going to do a little bit of a different session. Inshallah, we look forward to it, and I'm sure all our parents are looking forward to it too. Jazakallah khair, Brother Saeed. It was a pleasure.
Jazakallah khair, and Eid Mubarak to you, Sister Kathleen, and everyone, approachable parents, and all the parents. Eid Mubarak to you all. And may Allah make your Eid and Ramadan successful, inshallah. And Jazakumullah khair for listening today. And may Allah reward you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this session beneficial for all of us, inshallah. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.